Welcome to night number 137 of History Bedtime Stories in our pajamas in bed. And tonight we're talking about flour sack dresses or sack dresses. At the turn of the century, from the 1800s to the 1900s, it became more economical for grains, flour, animal feed, and corn to be shipped in sacks instead of in traditional barrels. Now, things like rum, alcohol, vinegars, pickling, all would still ship in barrels, but for dry goods, sacks became the name of the game. And these sacks were generally just labeled with the company, the weight, and what the product was. But by 1925, manufacturers start realizing that people are reusing the fabric of the sacks, especially farmers' wives. They're reusing the grain and the animal feed and the flour sacks to make clothing for their children, rag dolls, even dresses for adults, depending if the bag was one of those big 40-pound cornmeal bags. It could have enough fabric to produce a dress or a tablecloth. And because of this, corporations start creating beautiful fabrics to use in their sacking. Now, this wasn't completely kind or benevolent or generous. This was a genius marketing scheme. The first recorded company to do it was the Gingham Girl Flour. And if you've ever heard of the gingham pattern fabric, the more you know. Gingham Girl fabric actually is all the way back to Gingham Girl Flour. They start making their sacks out of a higher quality cotton fabric that's more useful as dresses and clothing. They start printing beautiful flower and checkered patterns on their bags. And critically, they come up with a way to have the logo, the type of product, and the weight all wash out by soaking in cold water overnight, meaning you were left with a beautiful fabric with no sort of logo or advertisement on it whatsoever. By the 1930s, most flour manufacturers, cornmeal manufacturers, and certainly those big 40-pound bags meant for farms and industry realized that if they didn't have a pretty fabric, they were getting passed over in the store for companies that did. So by the 1930s, it becomes this really crucial part of marketing. A company has the idea in 1932 to actually print patterns on the bag for making rag dolls and dish towels. Both of these sort of ideas of putting the pattern right on the bag took off, and by the 1933-34 summer-winter season, we have bags coming out in all different patterns, all different styles, and being advertised as limited edition patterns. This is a huge lifeline during the Great Depression. When money was tight, when supplies were running low, it gave people a way of stretching the money they were going to spend on flour anyway into part of their clothing budget. By 1936, the New York Times covers the sensation of flour sack dresses and actually quotes a Virginia housewife who says, "It went from being my husband making the decision about what brand of cornmeal we buy to me and my daughters. We tend to pick flowery patterns, things that would be pretty for Sunday church dresses." The Great Depression was the height of flour sack dresses, and although they're still available today, no company is still producing their flour in cotton sacks suitable for dressmaking. Of all of the sewing projects that come from the flour sack dresses, though, my favorite, being a non-sewer, is a simple one. When companies realized this was being used in garment production and in homeware production, they took and made better fabrics and better patterns, but they also changed the way they stitched the bags together. Using a single running stitch with a loop at the end, when you opened the bag, you could just pull that string out and you would already have a pre-hemmed bottom. So you could simply cut a head hole and 2 armholes, throw it over your toddler, and it was a complete dress. They would even print a collar pattern on the dress with a dotted line for where to cut. So we can actually thank flour production for some of the first no-sew dress patterns ever in America. I hope you're enjoying History Bedtime Stories, and if you are, give us a like and a share down below. If you give us a like and a share, we're going to enter you into a raffle to win a whole bunch of vinyl Detroit stickers. Wash your hands. We'll see you next week.